the founder of Pushpa, and I am very happy to invite him on the show today. Mahian Rob, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Fariha. That is a pretty good introduction. I wasn't expecting that.
I would have said more, but there's so much I can say because when I'm on LinkedIn, I'm seeing various bits and bobs where I want to learn something about, what can I do to sort of contribute to the Bangladesh Bangladeshi community, or whether it's my own career or something else I can do to volunteer. So, of course, before I go into all of that detail, I just want to understand, of course, you've graduated from Manchester Metropolitan University. So tell me how you went about that.
So, I lived in London originally, grew up in West London, and part of me wanted to get away from London as well. So I decided to go to Manchester, much to my mum and dad's detriment. They hated the idea of it. Went there, I studied economics in college, and I really wanted to do a business economics degree, which I fortunately done, and got my 2-1. And then I left university, went straight into work. Yeah.
And when you were trying to find a job at the time, was it easy? Was it hard? Did you have help from your peers at university?
Not really. I think I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I ended up falling into recruitment, really, like most, or 99.9% of recruiters will probably tell you. I ended up falling into there, and then I started off in something that was very different. It was construction and infrastructure, but then got headhunted to go to Interquest Group, and a practice that focuses solely on financial services, which was actually really relevant to the work or the university degree that I had. So I started working there and stayed there for 8.5 years, worked my way up.
That's a very long time.
I know, for nowadays, right? It's a really long time.
Yeah.
I did actually leave more recently, but I worked my way working purely with financial services, fintech, startups, scale-ups.
So what was it like, of course, starting that job at the time? Were you nervous? Was a lot of what you learned at university applied to when you were at the job, or was it something you learned on the job? It
was definitely on the job. I don't think you really, because you don't necessarily need to understand the industry that you're working in, but you predominantly need to understand sales and how you build relationships.
Yes.
And that's really key, I think, in any job, right? And as well as that, when you leave university and go to a corporate environment, you have no idea like what the etiquette is or how to operate. So I think those were the main challenges when I first went into Interquest.
And working at Interquest, of course, I understand you worked in risk management and analytics. What was that like specifically?
It was hard, really hard, especially the first couple of years, but it was really cool. I think I learned so much, and I put a lot of where I'm at now, honestly, to those first years of just, it was painful and hard, and you're really understanding everything. But I think when I look back at it, it's a lot of learning, and the main things that I really enjoyed was, I'm working with some of the coolest fintechs that people will know and people use daily, right? And I've helped them scale in the UK, in the EU, in the US. So I've had the opportunity of, consulting those guys as to how they operate and how they scale their businesses from a talent perspective. And actually that's really, really interesting. So I've really enjoyed that element of it.
Oh, interesting. So could you give us a few examples of some of the companies you've worked with?
Some of them will be NDA'd, but even if you look at the likes of your Monzos, your Starling Banks, Curve, Capital on Tap, there's a whole load of them that I could probably go into, but a lot of the new challenger banks and the new digital fintechs that we see, I've definitely probably been involved in some at some point in my career there.
So, of course, we come across a lot of difficulty when we're doing these jobs, and of course, when you've worked somewhere for 8 years, there has been struggles, of course. So, how have you overcome those struggles in a time like that?
I think that's a difficult one.
How put you on the spot?
I think it's one of the biggest things for me has been really focusing on celebrating small wins. So when I say that, I mean, work's tough, and it won't just be for me, and it will be for you and everyone, right? But when you get those little things that might not matter in the grand scheme of things, is really enjoying that moment that actually you've had a win, and those little things can really snowball into something, and you eventually get to the real positives. I'd probably say that, and focusing on my own mental health. I think that's something that we really need to think about, and fitness and gym and things like that, and being active and making sure you prioritize those things actually really help overcoming the really tough parts of work and life in general.
Of course. I resonate with that, because literally work is so difficult, and I don't celebrate the small wins, and I keep telling myself to do it, but yeah.
It's honestly,
really
it's little things. It's really like
Yeah.
small. In recruitment, it's someone that you really want to put forward for a job. If they answer your call, and even if they say no, the fact that they've answered, you've tried hard enough to go and get them on the phone. That's still a big win. That's a small win that you should celebrate, right? And move on to the next one.
Of course. Now, talking about small wins, I don't think it's a small win. I think it's a big win. Pushpa, for instance.
Yeah.
I've seen Pushpa all over my LinkedIn, and every single time I see it on my LinkedIn, I'm just like, yes, I like this post, everything. Can you tell me a little bit about Pushpa, what it is?
Absolutely, yeah, of course. So Pushpa is something I've co-founded, which is a platform for our community and the Bangladeshi community initially to put money together to fund projects in Bangladesh. So the projects that we really focus on and we will be funding are things that get people jobs, set up businesses or grow their businesses. And essentially what we're trying to do is make Bangladesh's economy flourish, right? And what we can do from here.
Of course. And can I ask how you came about this idea? At the time, I mean, you're working, you're doing a 9 to 5 maybe, and then you've got obviously the pressure of that, and then you've got this idea, and you're just like, wow, how do I get this into action?
Yeah, no. So it actually started off with a call from my mum whilst I was in Manchester. When I went to uni there and I started working there,
Yeah.
and my mum had called me for the 500th time saying I need £50 to send some money back to someone in our village back home. And I got off that call and I just thought, what even happens and what happens to this money? Has it even really helped?
Yeah.
Where are they now? Well, where does this money go? And really, I thought there's got to be some sort of solution that's more sustainable, that we can. Or I went to look for it first and foremost, and I didn't find it. The other element was, that reality of when my mum and my dad pass away, right? Fingers crossed that's not going to happen soon. But when that happens, our connection to Bangladesh is really fractured, right? With a lot of people in Britain, in the UK.
Yes.
That's a fear for all of us, right? Our connection goes, and then what do we do from that? So then, I wrote down this idea in 2019, and it was very different to what it is now. But I came back to London and ran this idea by the co-founders, and we ended up doing a survey, and it formed a real, or what Pushpa is now, and we've just built it. So hopefully it helps other people as well where they can't find a solution.
Of course. So just for our viewers, of course, how does the project actually work? How can someone from the community take part in it?
So what we're doing at the moment, so we've just built it.
Yes.
Right now it's signing up.
Yes.
So what we'd like people, or we ask people to, if you want to get involved, to sign up. How it will work is, to join our community, you'll need to put, ultimately we £5 a month minimum, right, as a monthly investment is what we're calling it. We're trying to shift the sort of definition of investment, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be fully for returns. And then what that does is it brings you into the community, and we join this community and we snowball this money into a larger fund. And what we'll do is we'll put a vote out, we'll put the projects to everyone. So there'll be 2 or 3 projects at a time. And then we get to vote on the projects that the money that we fund. And then we send the money in and we help deliver that project, and we'll get updates every way, right? And then we just continue doing that. So it's just a continuous cycle of increasing our pot.
Yeah.
And then funding these projects that help a lot of people and makes a lot of impact. I guess just to give you an idea, right? It's some of this money will go. We can talk about a total cost of, say, £1,000 to £2,000, which actually isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things. You can change, from our numbers that we've got from some of these projects, you're changing 50 people's lives for at least a year, right? And continuously, because it's going to be sustainable.
Of course. I mean, the money that's obviously being generated through these other funds, is it something that's reinvested again? So if you're not using it for one project, will it be reinvested into another project? How does that work?
Absolutely. So we're a non-profit. So our how we're set up means that we can't take any money out of Pushpa. Every bit of money will either stay as cash or it will be reinvested in whichever way is useful for Pushpa to continue operating. So there's nothing that will come out. There's no dividends, etc. for anyone there. And hopefully it sits, right? And we just, like I said, as with anything or any type of fund, if you're looking at your ISAs, etc., the continuous cycle of building that, we just continue to grow that cash.
Inshallah, I can't wait to see everything that happens with Pushpa, of course. It's quite exciting, so do check it out on LinkedIn, and of course they have their own website, so that's somewhere to be.
Yeah, no, definitely, thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Of course, moving on, I understand you've now left Interquest.
I have, yeah.
So what are you doing at the moment?
So now I've joined a startup bank called Vemi, which is a digital bank that they're building, or I will be helping to build. And their focus is essentially on building products that means that people don't have to compromise on their values, right? So it's essentially ethical products for people who really, I guess, from two elements. It's Sharia compliant products and ethical products, so like say ethical savings.
Okay, so I mean, why did you want to, join this company? Was there any reason specifically?
So I brought them on as a client for Interquest.
Oh gosh,
There's a bit of a contentious issue from a contractual perspective, but I won't go into that right now.
No, of course not.
But no, I've been working with fintechs and startups for the last 5 years, so it was always an interest, and I've successfully supported a lot of people.
Yes.
And I actually knew some of the people at group level, and I was introduced to them to bring them on as a client. And one thing led to another. We were working with them from Interquest, and the CEO Shazad, like the nicest guy you'll ever meet. We had a conversation around, look, what does it look like for you to come here and help us out internally? And they're doing such an amazing job with their product, what their idea is, and what they want to do and build, and with the people that they've got every chance to make it. And I felt like I couldn't say no and not be part of that. So it tied in with all the experience that I had and the people there and the idea itself. And I had this, I'm doing Pushpa at the moment. There's
a lot going on.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on.
Maybe too much.
No, I mean, too much is never.
That's true.
It's better than too less.
Yeah, no, true.
So, no, of course.
True.
I think what I'm really keen to learn is, for someone who's looking for a career in fintech, what's something they should look out for? I mean, if they're young, let's say in school maybe, what should they start doing from now?
I think there's so many entry points into financial services that people lose sight of that a little bit, right? There's not. Some people have an idea what banking is, and actually I think there's so many areas that you can go into, and there's so many different companies. I think one of the things that we see quite often is, especially in the younger generation, is they've got an idea around what the best financial services or fintech companies are, right? You think about your HSBCs, Barclays, and that's your idea of what banking is and financial services, when in reality there's hundreds and thousands of others, right? And you're at the FCA now, right? So I mean, really, you've got a whole host. You understand, right? There's a whole host of businesses, and actually working in those and the smaller ones will probably get you the more experience and better experience than you'll get in some of the larger ones. So really, I wouldn't worry too much about which area. I'd worry about, just think about what type of organisations you want to be working in, have a look, research, and then find the right one for you.
Of course. I think also I find that a lot of my peers ask me, should they start from a smaller company versus a larger one? Because, for instance, we have the big names like JP Morgan or, I don't know, like Doughty Street Chambers and all sorts of big names, whatever field it is. So you're saying basically it's okay to start in a smaller firm because you will learn more.
100%. I think that I advise people to do that more and more now anyway. I think the experience that you get, sorry, the experience that you get in the smaller organisations, because you're going to have to do more, you're going to have to learn more, whereas you can sort of get siloed in some of these larger organisations. So getting that experience, and suddenly you're more valuable to hundreds of other organisations because you understand what these types of organisations need, and you've got that breadth, which I think is more important than ever now, especially when businesses are trying to be more lean and not hire too many people. We've seen a whole load of redundancies in larger organisations. So actually, it's the ones that, if you can do more, they're going to want you more, right? That's the reality.
No, of course. Talking about, of course, your career, I mean, you've worked in fintech, you're now doing Pushpa, you're doing so much as it is. If there was a message you could give your young self, what would that message be? Everything
will be all right, I think. I think that's the biggest thing. Because we all have that self-doubt and lack of confidence. I'm no different to anyone else. I think the main thing is work hard and things will work out. That's the mantra that I'm still trying to go by. So I think it's just understanding that, and I think I mentioned to one of my friends actually, the other thing someone told me, and it's really resonated, is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I would not class myself as someone who's super smart, or like my education isn't crazy. So, but what I do know is I put the work in, and that means a lot more than just being super smart. Like I feel like that adds a lot more value. So I try and live by that, really.
Of course, no, that is a very beautiful message, and of course, I think our viewers will definitely benefit from that. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah,
I feel like I could speak to you for so long. I know, I know. Off camera, we had a long conversation, of course, about Pushpa as well as the future for Pushpa, and of course, inshallah, we really hope to have you back soon.
I'd love to. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
No, take care.
Of course, that was Mahian Rab with, of course, Pushpa as well as his career in fintech, whether it be at Interquest or Venmo, and of course, I think it's great to see that, of course, people from our own community trying to do as much as possible for Bangladesh or any other country. It's great to see that.